Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to look at my entire case collection. Really cool collection. I hope you all enjoy it. We're going to try to get through it in 15 minutes or very close to that. So if you'd like to see more of that, go ahead and check out the channel. Okay, welcome back to the Fortified Castle. Hi to all my viewers. I got a lot of knives to show today, so I'm going to be moving quick. Just a little preamble here. This is my entire case collection. I don't have any case fixed blade knives. I don't know why. I just don't. Last year I did a case collection knife. There's a lot of additions to this collection since then. Last year I set it up from oldest to youngest and went through and just picked out a few that were noteworthy. But this time I'm going to do something a little different. I think you'll find it really interesting, and we're going to look at them by sizes. That's going to give you a better idea of the availability of knives in certain sizes and what models are available. And I just think it'll be really interesting, maybe surprising to you. There were a couple knives in here that I was surprised at the size of them. I was thinking they were one size, but they were actually a different size. And so it is kind of an interesting way to look at this. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, before we look at these knives, a couple more caveats. So obviously this is just knives in my collection. So there are a lot of other models of case knives, especially as you stretch back in time. And so kind of remember that when I'm talking about these, they're not every knife that may be available in a certain size. The other caveat is these are my measurements. So a lot of times I've found this true in a bunch of these knives, by the way, in collector forums or books or even on websites. They list the sizes as different. Sometimes that's just a mistake, and sometimes it's it's just inaccurate. And so the sizes that you're going to see today are sizes that I actually measured for these knives. All right, first off, the biggest case folder that you're likely to come across is the 65 pattern. That's this pattern right here. This is a great one, and genuine scrimshaw, and really nice scroll here. It's deep, and that's pretty cool. The 65 pattern comes in a bunch of different variations. There's some 3-bladed and even a 4-bladed version back in antiquity, so it's a pretty cool version of a knife. Next up is this really cool knife, an example of a really big knife from a long time ago. This is a 13 pattern, and it is a slim Coke bottle with a spear point blade on it, and I wonder what they use these for. Next up, really big knife, is the case Sidewinder at 5 1/4. They call this a Sidewinder because it's a locking blade. This really interesting knife here, Holden Hunter. But the button here, the shield, actually unlocks the knife, and so it works like that. You just push the button in. 5 1/4 inch. Below that, you've got your 43 pattern. Let me move this over so we can concentrate a little bit more on what we're looking at. You got the 43 pattern, which is the granddaddy. It is 5 inches long. A couple different iterations of that. Next, you have the M346. Very interesting knife here. Developed and made in World War II. It's 4 7/8 inches. It's a behemoth. Made out of stainless steel. It's pretty heavy too, and it's a sailor's knife. You have a sheep's foot blade on here, a marlin spike, and a can opener. This is a Canadian model, made in Canada by Case, probably 1948. I think that knife dates to. Next, at 4 5/8, you have the 100 pattern. This is a saddle horn pattern that Case made. It's an old knife. They made them from the 20s on, discontinued them prior in 1940, brought them back, and a couple different variations of these exist also. Also in that same 4 and 5/8, of course, is the model 38. This is the large sod buster. You don't see very many of these, but they're really, really nice working knives. And I'd rather have this than the junior sod buster any day. Next, at 4 and 3/8, this is another old model. It's a pattern 40 dogleg jack from Case, discontinued in 1940, again brought back in the 80s. I think the last time they produced this was probably 1999. Next is the 11 pattern, another really cool pattern. This is just like a English jack. Has a nice hunt here, almost like a gun stock almost. And another pattern that just ran a couple of years after it had been discontinued. This is also, if you put a guard on this, that's the model number for the Case guard pattern. Last up in that variety is this knife right here. I'm sorry, this is a 4 1/4 inch knife right here. It is the 50, the sunfish or elephant toenail. Also came in different patterns and iterations. Also, the 50 comes in different models, and so your medium Coke bottle is a 50 pattern too. So Case did that a lot. These are all 4 1/4 inch. This is a gunboat, really cool pattern. Just a really big canoe, actually. The 94 pattern is, this looks a lot smaller because it's thin, but it's 4 1/4 inches. It's the fish, the 94F, which is your fish pattern. Really cool. One of the few Delrin models I have. Next up, the one we all love is the Case 75. Came in a bunch of different iterations. This one is a 2-blade, and it's a moose, and one of my cherished Case knives. These are hard to get a hold of, and they're expensive, and so yeah, I'm glad to have that. Moving next on to the 4 1/8. So all of these are 4 1/8, and of course it's the Case 54 pattern, the Trapper. Also came in a bunch of different iterations in the past. All of mine are 2-bladed. The 48 pattern doesn't look like 4 1/8 inches, but it is 4 1/8 inches. Probably because, again, it's so thin. The one we all love, the 49L. This is one of the best EDC knives you could ever hope to use. It is a fantastic EDC knife. Great size, feels great in hand, blade locks, just a really nice pattern. Okay, moving over, you have your 99 pattern, another pattern that came in a bunch of different iterations. These, when it's basically just a very large jumbo jack. This one has a sheepsfoot blade, and it's a whaler. It came marked like this from Case. You're probably most familiar with the one without the shank that has a clip blade on it, or a spear point blade, and those we call rail splitters. The next size is a 4 inch, and at 4 inches you have the 92 pattern. Again, came in a bunch of different varieties. This is a jack. I also have a Stockman in this pattern here, and surprisingly is the Seahorse. Weighs in at 4 inches. I always thought this was a 3 3/4 inch knife, but it's 4 inch knife. This is a 55 pattern, the Seahorse. It's an old Case Brothers pattern that Case brought back. And as you'll see later, this is another instance of where, sometimes these pattern numbers overlap into other knives, because we're going to look at another 55 pattern later. At 3 7/8, the beautiful, functional muskrat. We love the muskrat. And right below that, at 4 3/8 is the, 4 inches is the copperhead. So this is a model knife. One of my favorite models from Case. Feels a lot like a 49L. And this is the, I think I already said it. I'm getting confused already. It's a lot of little numbers to remember here. Come on, snap in. Snap in. Yes, yeah, 49 pattern. I already said that. Below that is the below that is a different size, 3 7/8. So all of these were 4 inches. This is 3 7/8. It's the 47 pattern. I really like this pattern right here. It's my favorite Stockman size. Just really good all-around knife. It's small, but it's big, and it does a lot of work. Came in a lot of iterations. I have the Whittler in that, and also a Stockman. Below that, at 3 3/4, we have the Razor. This is a 05 pattern. This is another old pattern from Case. It ran from 1920 up. Was discontinued sometime late in the 70s, and then Case brought it back. Really cool, and burl wood right there. In that same 3 3/4 inch is the 31 pattern. A lot of different variations in this. This one came with a sheep spit blade. Somebody's tried to make it into a one-arm blade right there. Really cool. In walnut. They also come in this pattern right here. It's basically a big jack, and this is a 2-bladed model in slick black. The 39 pattern, the Tony Bowes 39, another old Case pattern. Tony Bowe, put his beautiful input into the knife, and that's 3 3/4. And the 130 pattern, which is in curly maple right here. It is the gunstock pattern. Really nice knife. Good size too. Also at that 3 3/4 is our favorite knife, the Sodbuster Jr. Really, really fantastic knife. At 3 5/8, you've got the 45 pattern. This 45 pattern again comes in a lot of variations. This is a cattle knife right here, and then also you have the utility knife up there, the 051 LSP. Really nice locking knife that Case discontinued. This is a really nice knife. I like this knife. The 405L. This is in walnut. Right there. The Case Canoe 131 model. And then I'm sorry, my mind is not firing. So this is the 18 pattern, also 3 5/8. It's one of the surprising ones. I always thought this was a 3.5 inch model, but it's 3 5/8. Comes in a bunch of different iterations also. Moving on to 3.5 inches is the 32 pattern. Really nice pattern here. Square bolsters. This is an old jack right here. Also the 07 pattern. This was always a dogleg jack. Case calls this a mini trapper, as we all do now, but before the 80s it was always a jack. It was a clip blade with a pin blade, sometimes other blades. There's different variations of these. That's a nice red bone. Found that in Savannah, Georgia in an antique shop for $40. And The 83 pattern, also 3.5 inches. Usually this was a whittler, the 83 pattern, but it does come in a two-bladed version also. This is in beautiful autumn bone here, and I hope this is coming out. And that's a nice pattern. And another Tony Bowes pattern, the 110. So again, this is a curved jack or a saddle horn, but basically it's a curved jack. Really cool pattern at 3.5 inches. Moving down to the smaller knives at 3 3/8 inches, you have the 09 pattern, which is a genuine Barlow, 3 3/8 inches. Here's a single bladed version. I have both. The 87 pattern, this came in a bunch of versions too. I have the jack pattern of that, and also the Stockman. Also came in a pin blade configuration, 2 blades. This is a 55 pattern. Remember the Case Seahorse? This was the original 55 pattern. This came in different iterations too. This is an equal end jack. Next is the 02 pattern. This is basically a slim regular jack. Case ran these all the way up to the late 70s and then discontinued them. That's a 2-blade version. This is a 14 pattern. The only difference between the 02 and the 14 is the 02 is a bear head, and this has 2 bolsters. Next is a 79 pattern. This came in a bunch of different variations, and sometimes they don't even make sense, but I think that's because they dropped it and then picked it up again. This, of course, is a sleeve board pattern in rough black. Moving on to 3 1/4, you have the 80 pattern. This is another equal end pattern, and this is a small cattle knife, is what this would be called. Really cool. The 44 pattern, again, came in a bunch of different variations. This is a Stockman variation. They came in 2-blade and even single blade. This is the 08 pattern, really popular pattern with collectors. It's in the whittler configuration, but it's a humpback serpentine knife. A lot of times you see the half whittler with 2 blades. Another Tony Bowes iteration, the 117. This is a beautiful knife here. Moving on to 3 1/8, you have the 68 pattern. This is the smallest Congress that Case made. They also made the 52, which I think is 3.5 inches, and the 88 pattern, which is large. So at 3 1/4, here's another variation of the 79 pattern. This is actually called a 279. Most of the time you see this pattern, it's a really, really robust little knife. And most of the time you see this pattern as a commercial type of advertising knife. But they also made like the 279 in mother and pearl and bone. You don't see those as many. The 09, which is the mini copperhead right here, and beautiful abalone right there. Look at that. Nice little pattern. Probably mostly at the at that 3 1/4 inch level. You're most familiar with the 25 pattern. This little mini Coke bottle pattern that Coke makes. It's a nice little knife. It's a nice little small knife. It feels very substantial for its size. Make a great little penknife type of knife. And you have a mini Blackhorn. This one is in a synthetic green. These are little tiny lock knives. Pretty nice little handy small locking knife. And the 63 pattern, which was is also nicknamed the Eisenhower pattern. You can see that beautiful stag there on this one. Really lucky to get that. Next up is the 3-inch patterns. So the 3-inch patterns, you have the 96 right here. It is a mini toothpick. I always thought these were a gimmick by Case, you know, just to sell more knives. But this is another pattern that dates back to the 20s. They actually produced this knife for a long time in this little tiny format. The 42 pattern, the only probably, it's a coffin end, and so that's what you call them when they're square here and they swell in the middle. And it's a coffin pattern, and one of the very few that Case made. Next up at 2 7/8 is the 27 pattern. So this is a serpentine jack right here. They came in a couple different variations, but Case dropped them in the 70s because they're making the 20 pattern, the peanut, what we all know and love as a peanut. And they really didn't need both patterns, I guess. What most people would call Case's smallest knife is the 33 pattern. This is another pattern that's been in Case's lineup since the 20s. A lot of different variations on these. They come in 2 blades, 3 blades, and this one is in red stag. Man, I don't think this is snapping in. Hope you guys are getting a good view of this. Actually, the smallest Case knife is a 01 pattern, so it's an equal end pen knife. This is in walnut. Cool little knife. It is cool. Very solid for its size. 2 5/8. I think that's the smallest pattern that Case makes. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it came out good. I'll have to view it. If not, I'll remake it. So thanks again for dropping by. And man, that's a whole lot of eye candy right there.